Colin McGuire has been in the e-commerce game for a long time. He's building a hair care brand at Glimmr, and he's building that brand in a way that is really different than most of what you have heard about how brands get started. This is not the story of meta ads to the moon from the earliest stage of the business. Instead, it's a really fascinating story about leveraging TikTok Shop to get millions and millions of viral views on your product, parlaying that into mass retail from a very early stage of business, and using that as the growth mechanism alongside all the other tactics. Colin has been in the game for a while, like I said. He's also co-founder of Boomin, which is an ad agency that he had worked at for a long time. We're gonna get into all of it right now. You're going to like this story because it represents a pathway to growth, particularly in a beauty business that I think is underrated, underconsidered for many brands. Let's talk to Colin McGuire about turning viral views on TikTok into getting into Target and selling a whole bunch of hair care. Fellow Dodger hats on this call, even though you're in Michigan, Colin.
Yeah.
So, dude, thanks for taking time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, I'm stoked to chat about it. Hopefully this can be helpful for others. I know TikTok Shop can seem like a really difficult puzzle to master. So, yeah. Excited to do it.
All right, let's give people the context first for why I reached out to you and what was compelling to me about this story that I thought was just sort of worthy of attention from people. And so I'll start by saying you in a forum had spun the tale of your brand's growth in a way that was really different than what I mostly hear right now. And so can you just walk people through what you have done to grow Glimmr to where it is at right now? Give any context you would like to give on sort of where it is currently at. And then I want to break that down for you and just see like who should do this, who shouldn't do it the way you're doing it. And what is the next stage of growth and all that. So you've just got a really interesting playbook here.
Awesome. Yeah. So, Glimmr is a premium hair care brand. We operate in the salon care space. Okay. And so while ours is, they're functional products, not just meant to be cosmetics, right? They need to serve a purpose. They need to offer real benefits, solve real world problems. And, we're also pairing that, with kind of the premium salon care space. And in premium beauty in general, one thing I realized really early on is, yes, Meta can buy you revenue at scale, but it's not going to be very efficient unless I can kind of become culturally relevant. It felt like we were hitting our head on a glass ceiling over and over again. High conversion rate on the website. It felt like we were doing all of the right things, with our ad creatives. But the scale, being able to spend, and get to, big months, $500,000, $1 million months, just didn't feel like it was there. It felt like we kept hitting our head on a glass ceiling. And after a good amount of thought and reflection on the brand, I realized that I thought it was simply because in beauty, you need a certain amount of cultural relevance. You need to be like recognized and thought about. And I think that happens mainly on social media these days, particularly TikTok. And so when we decided to kind of reapproach the business for growth, right? We had already had success with Meta ads. We had success with Google ads. But again, it seemed like every single time we scaled per se, things just fatigued. And it just didn't feel like the other categories I had operated in. And the ultimate goal for beauty is to get into mass retail. And so when I had kind of re-engineered my approach and my thesis on the business, it was, how do I long-term get into mass retail and also become kind of culturally relevant in the beauty space, right? And that's where I landed on TikTok Shop. And so the thing is the reality is that TikTok it's like the cultural it's the cultural engine, right? That is kind of powering the world right now, right? And before it was Instagram, right? Now it's TikTok. And if you look at TikTok, the way to scale there is through affiliate and TikTok shop. Like things have to look and feel organic on TikTok. You know what I mean? And so the way to do that was to scale organically with TikTok shop. And so the reason actually for it was Aaron Nosbish from Breeze actually came and visited me here at my house in Michigan last summer. And we were talking about his success on TikTok shop. And I got really intrigued by it. I got re-inspired with my original approach. And that's when we just really decided to hit it hard. And so, I think that's the kind of story. I mean, where would you like me to kind of go? Obviously,
there's something fascinating about post. There's something fascinating about what you have said elsewhere, which is like, let's just try to quantify the success a little bit. So when you did that, how many TikTok views did you get and over what time period? Because what you're talking about is the idea that like to break through in a certain space, you need to register culturally with your core audience, right? So particularly for beauty, that core audience, TikTok is a critical part of it. So, but like in order to register culturally, you can't do that with 10,000 views. Like you have not culturally registered at that point, right? So I see what you're saying, which is like, here's where my customer is. And if I want to actually make an
here's
impact,
where they're making buying decisions, getting introduced to products, getting introduced to brands, right? Like, and I realized that was happening on TikTok. So that was my general approach.
So that's the consideration. And I think this is where like this story is relevant, even if TikTok is not the place where your cultural fit is, right? Because the idea is go where your people are and be part of that community and find the way to break in. But I'm curious to hear like how much did you actually accomplish? How much did you resonate in terms of what kind of reach did Glimmr actually achieve and over what timeline, on TikTok?
Yeah. So we amassed roughly like 35 to 40 million views in about 90 to 100 days. I'm actually pulling up the blog post that I wrote that, we ended up talking about, because I remember I did the research for that blog post and it was a while ago, but we did about 40 million views in roughly 90 to 100 days. From that, we did about $330,000 in sales on TikTok shop.
How much? Say that again.
About 330,000.
Okay. That's actually
USD.
Crazy low in one respect, right? Like it's like 40 million views, only 300,000 in sales. And that's sort of part of the fascinating story to me is the mismatch there between
the revenue per view on TikTok is actually very low. That's one thing that I learned as well. If you actually go and look at a lot of the brands that are doing extremely well on TikTok, or actually a better way to look at it sometimes is there's actually a lot of TikTok shop affiliates that post their numbers on X, and oftentimes you see like, okay, the revenue per view that I was seeing on the brand side is about the revenue per view that that they're seeing as an affiliate. And so the revenue per view is definitely very different. That was a huge thing that I learned as well, pursuing this, is that the value for a video view is not like it was on like Instagram or Facebook, even when you kind of would have a viral post on either one of those platforms previously, because I've been doing this for a long time. And so it felt like a new set of rules on TikTok, honestly. It felt like a new, reality.
Well, let's hang out there for a second. So you did 330K. I mean, just to be totally honest with you, if that was the reach that you had, while it's impressive to do that in 90 days, don't get me wrong, and everybody should feel really good about a business that's doing that kind of money. I really don't mean to, like, it's extremely hard to generate that kind of revenue, whatever. I probably wouldn't have invited you on, right? Like if that was the whole story. I certainly don't invite people on who get a lot of views because I don't really care. Like what is interesting to me is like how you parlayed that into actual value for the business. So while you see, I don't know if that 330 or whatever that number was is like TikTok shop affiliate is like a specifically, and if you could measure a halo to other channels, or if it was like I know you talked about selling into mass retail and an impact there. So can you sort of take us from the views to the impact on the business at the broader level?
Yeah, so maybe we should zoom out a little bit, right? So the general thing was like, my approach to TikTok from day one, right, was like, okay, if this is the cultural engine driving, beauty brands, right, driving, consumers to discover and purchase new beauty products, like I had talked to a lot of people, Aaron from Breeze, Zane, who runs a TikTok shop agency. And it was the general consensus that like this channel was not going to be this like massive profit driver. In fact, like it was really high effort, and you would get a lot of views, and it would be a massive prospecting engine for you, but it wasn't going to be a profit driver. And so our approach to it, right away was to basically use it, again, as a prospecting engine for all of our other channels, right? And so what that looked like for us was we wanted to parlay it into success on Meta, success on Google, success on Amazon, and ultimately, success for retailers. My original approach, like my approach as a bootstrapped founder, right? Like I actually acquired Glimmr. Okay. It's like we had, capital to acquire a few brands between, 22 and 23, my partner and I. And my approach was like, I had seen this work in the past with client brands at my agency, by the way. This is where I got it. Okay. Be so good that they can't ignore you, right? Like be so popular, be the best category, be one of the best products in the category, have the product be so quality they can't ignore you, have your marketing and your and your attention, be so good that they can't ignore you, and they will come to you eventually. Okay. And again, that was our approach. That was part of our approach. On the short-sightedly, we wanted it to be a prospecting engine for our other advertising and marketing channels. Long-term, we wanted to parlay it into, basically attention from retail buyers, right? Attention from mass market retail.
You actively thought of that in advance. You were yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And so it was like, we knew that it would come eventually, right? I thought that it would come eventually. And if it didn't come naturally, my plan was to basically go and pitch it to a retail sales agency who would go talk to these buyers and say, hey, here's this brand, 40, 50 million views on TikTok, regular viral moments, right? Top performing brand on TikTok shop, right? Because that's what the retail buyers are interested in now, right? The retail buyers that are bringing digitally native brands in store, right, are the ones that, have cultural relevance, they have virality, and that's who they want to bring in store. And so I knew in some way, shape, or form, the way that I called my shot on it was saying that I knew that this would be a valuable asset in the future. I didn't know exactly how it was going to play out, but it ended up playing out that the lead hair care buyer from Target literally filled out a customer service form on our website and said, come meet me in person. And 8 minutes into our first in-person meeting, stuck her hand across the table and we made a deal, right? Within 10 minutes of talking, because of the cultural relevance that we had created, layered with the product, like the quality of our product and the fact that she had used our products, her team had used the products, and they all liked it. And so, it was just where, quality products met, had a crossover with really solid marketing. And she knew it was something that would be successful in Target.
If you are building an e-commerce business like Colin and you want to grow that business fast and effectively, and you want to do it while deploying most of your dollars into the things that move the needle, like marketing and advertising and product development, making great products, putting them in front of people, you should consider hiring and staffing your team with more staffing, because it will allow you to run a great e-commerce business at a low OpEx as a percentage of your revenue without skimping on getting the talent that you need. That's because more staffing connects you to the best best talent in the Philippines for e-commerce businesses in the US. And that is because More Staffing was actually built not just as a general talent agency, but on the back of US-based e-commerce businesses that filled their entire team basically with incredible Filipino talent. And so many people still are sleeping on the Philippines. They're thinking of the Philippines as a place that you go to only to get, sort of super entry level talent and pay a very, very, very low rate. That's the wrong way to think about what is possible for you in the Philippines. You should instead be thinking about hiring at the top of the Filipino market, where your dollars will still go much further than hiring at the top of local markets in the US in particular. And at the same time, it creates a great opportunity for that talent. So not only do you get great people, but you give them the best opportunity possible, which helps with your retention, attract great talent, retain great talent. And in all of that, More Staffing is the group of people who can connect you to that talent and who can identify it, because they are not some massive, gigantic staffing conglomerate. They are a more hands-on, more boutique, more work with you in the weeds kind of agency. They will help you at every level of the process. They will help you identify, recruit, onboard, train, they actually provide ongoing coaching for professionals that they hire. They are just really, really great. I know that because I have been working with More Staffing in every business that I touch, and I mean that for years now. They are really critical pieces of the things that make AJF Growth and the e-commerce brand I'm founding work. I really think it's one of my competitive advantages right now is my relationship with More Staffing. It can be yours too. Go to morestaffing.co/AF, morestaffing.co/AF. See if there's someone in the Philippines who can fill a key spot in your e-commerce business all across the business, whether that's intro level or even better, all the way up to manager, director, etc. across your organization. Morestaffing.co/AF. Get started today. And it sounds like you made sort of just enough money back, because you mentioned like being bootstrapped. You can't sit here and just do like a giant lead. You made sort of just enough money back to keep the lights on. And I don't want to overstate it. Like it doesn't sound like you're on the brink of bankruptcy or something, but just like you were able to sort of like take a big swing, make enough money to where it was like worth it to sort of push forward the thing. And I think this is actually a really important part of this discussion, because I think lots of people would be like, look, I'd love to go do influencer marketing in a broader way. I'd love to go where my customers are outside of Meta. But what Meta offers everybody is money right now, and it's really hard to find channels outside of that create cultural impact with your audience that aren't long, slow payback periods, So I think a lot of people would love to do that. So it's fascinating to me to hear like you're going like, we made sort of just enough money back to pay for this mechanism. And then what that allowed us to do was then go to these other places to where it actually becomes profitable and something that you can build a foundation on long term.
Correct. The thing that I will say about TikTok Shop, right? You were saying the numbers are underwhelming, right?
Yeah.
First of all, Glimmr was a very small brand starting that year, right?
Well, not the view count. The view count's amazing. It's just amazing with the revenue per view. Yeah.
And so this was the launching point for the brand. I do want to kind of set some parameters here, right? To give people, a good look. Like the previous year, the brand had finished the year at 1.8 million, right? So in March of 24, when we pulled this off, it skyrocketed us to a $5 million, to a $5 million a year brand, right? So we grew significantly, right? We became culturally relevant, right? We had a bunch of organic moments where housewives from the Real Housewives series were posting about us on their Instagram. They were mentioning us, in Vogue articles on how they, we parlayed it into a lot of earned media, right? And so there was a benefit to it, and it made our meta ads like people, there's the whole cost cap versus auto bid thing that, I love that you participate in on Meta. I participate in it from time to time as well. It's like, you want to know what makes your cost caps perform really well? When you just have natural demand off platform and there's this ecosystem of traffic happening, right? That makes it so you don't have to be the best. You don't have to be the best at creative, the best at landing page, the best media buyer on Meta, because you have an exterior engine kind of starting to drive demand. And so that was a part of it. The other thing that I will say is TikTok Shop is generally a race to the bottom, right? The place where your product is going to sell for the cheapest ever is going to be probably on TikTok Shop, or maybe Walmart if you can get into if mass retail and Walmart is a good fit for your brand. A lot of times it's not, right? But those are the two places where your product is going to sell for the cheapest. And so there's like, you have affiliate fees, you have influencer fees, you have GMV max ad fees, and then you have the TikTok shop platform fees. And then on top of that, you're going to give away insane discounts. Why? Because that's just how TikTok shop works. And so it's generally a break-even approach, right? But we used it to basically parlay the next level of success, right? We used it to become a well-known beauty brand, right? And so, I think the interesting part about the way that we approached TikTok shop is I took what was working extremely well from my analysis of brands in many different categories, right? What people were doing with, affiliate creators, right? What people were doing with influencers, what people were doing with GMV Max, what people were doing with creators on retainer. And I figured out, okay, there's kind of a growth engine here, right? You get like content supply with these micro creators, right? And those are the people you're working with in exchange for free items on the TikTok shop affiliate platform, right? Then you get cultural credibility by having either macro creators or influencers, right? Give your brand its moment, right? And it seems like now you have these big people talking about you, and there's this coordinated flurry of other creators, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other creators talking about your stuff. And then you layer in the paid amplification with GMV Max. And then, you have your conversion levers, right? You have, we were using SMS, pushing SMS traffic to TikTok shop, which I've actually personally never heard anyone else do that before.
Yeah, I haven't.
Which is
either.
kind of a silly thing that
cool.
we layered in.
Yeah.
But it worked. And then the other thing is like you have your flash sales, your promotions, you build your urgency by crafting really good offers on TikTok shop. And when you bring the whole thing together, it kind of results in this engine or this flywheel that once it clicked, boom, it went really fast in 90 or 100 days about. The problem was it wasn't really for us, a bootstrapped brand, right, that didn't have a ton of cash, capital sitting in the bank. Did it make sense for us to continue to maintain it at that scale? No, it didn't. Now we've continued to maintain it, and TikTok shop has had its problem. We got our original TikTok profile banned. All of those tagged TikTok shop videos went away. We actually got our first TikTok shop banned. And so our current TikTok shop is the one that exists right now. And so, that was our approach, was like, basically create this growth engine that could be a prospecting, engine for us, that could build us cultural relevancy, that could make all of the other channels, more successful. And ultimately that's what happened.
I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, which is the sort of like media buying tactics, manual bids versus auto is one example, but there's more of them, versus this kind of thing. And I actually think this is like a really important point that you're making here. And it's something I've heard smart people say. I think there's a way in which almost anybody can swing in too far in any direction here, which is like, you can say things like, build a great brand and product. That's the only thing that matters. And everybody stop obsessing over your media buying tactics or whatever. And that's wrong. As I always say with people, and I don't think you're saying that, by the way, as you said, you participate in these conversations too. So I always say to people, your meta spend is probably the biggest line item in your business. It might be number 2 behind your COGS, but you should care about managing the biggest line item of your business with excellence. And it's also your biggest potential growth lever. So you should care a lot. People should listen to or watch me and evaluate the arguments that I make for manual bids closely and carefully, and talk about and think about whether or not I'm right or wrong, and get as good of a clarification to that as possible. And of course, I'm sure there's probably things I'm right about and probably things I'm wrong about. So because it matters, it is important to manage your biggest line. It's the same reason you ought to go hammer away at your supply chain, because it's a really big part of your cost structure in your business, and so you can't just be like, wow, supply chain isn't the thing that matters. All that matters is growing on Meta, or whatever, or all that matters is brand. Like, nobody would say that about supply chain. Everybody knows you should get a better supply chain. It matters too much for the finances of your business. So there's that. But on the other side, what people will then do is say, like, the only thing that matters is like tactical Meta growth. And here's the thing about that. I actually think there's like a subset of people who are so freaking good at Meta and so good at like landing page optimization. They're both great strategically, and they're excellent at the process. They have and they just are super high effort. That they just are monsters at building teams, pushing everybody towards these things, testing at an insane light speed to where basically they've built enough brand and they're doing kind of the basics of everything else, but they're really doing everything else around these sort of like incredible funnels. But that is not most people. I actually think most of us should not try to go down that route, because it's so hard to be, my sense is like Zach Stuck is one of these guys. And we mentioned Jordan Menard earlier. Jordan's going to be on my podcast soon. Subscribe if you're watching or listening. Don't miss that. I'm going to have Jordan on, tell me why I'm wrong about a lot of the things that I'm talking about here. Right. And those guys, it seems to me, like, are just machines of optimization on that kind of stuff. And I love listening to them talk about it, actually, because there's this sort of like subject level excellence. Yeah, I'll pass the ball to you in a second. I would love to hear. But what you're expressing, I actually think, is probably the right way for most brands, which is like attempt to build you mentioned earlier, both like being where your customer is and great product. You mentioned great. You said a few times, like, the product is great. My target buyer had experience that they knew it was great. Like, hammering away at those things as part of it, growing from 2 million to 5 million is both extremely impressive and is not always the story that gets told. Like, anybody who's thinking rationally about that knows that that's extremely hard to do. But the story that gets told on Twitter is 2 million to 25 million,
Exactly.
Like, it's like, yeah. And so, but people need to hear, like, this is actually the viable pathway for more people, even pulling back the TikTok spend at some point, because it stops becoming valuable, and trying to kind of now hammer away at the rest of the business.
Yeah, that's real.
I think what you're expressing,
that's
exactly,
a real thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's really good. It's like people I hope you feel like extremely proud of that process, because it's very hard to do what you're describing. And I think it's the pathway for most people. So anyway, go ahead. What were you going to say about sort of tactics versus the brand stuff?
Well, I have a couple thoughts, actually. I was just at Nick Shack's event, Commerce Roundtable, and was talking to a lot of people. And you're right? Like, there's this grass is always greener on the other side thing, or like you start comparing yourself to others because Zach Stuck and Jordan and Breeze and all these really Obvi and all these really popular brands, right?
Yeah.
Are just crushing it, 0 to 30 million a year, right?
Yeah.
And listen,
can we talk about Breeze really fast? They're selling drugs. Like, it's of course they make a lot of money fast.
Exactly. It's like, they took.
I'm not even being condescending. I mean, it's just like,
it's
those guys are very impressive. Don't get me wrong, but like,
exactly. It's like that's exactly my point, right? You have an extreme amount of product market fit, right? Matched with the people we just talked about there are some of the best, most brilliant direct response advertising, paid social minds in our industry, point blank, right? These are the people that, really, no matter what they're selling, they're going to be successful at it, right? And a lot of these guys were agency guys. It didn't matter what they were selling; they were successful at it, right, across the board. And then
I actually doubt that. I bet they were not as successful for all of their clients, but that when that's part of the point. And that's part of the point, though. When their mind goes all in on the problem at that level, it creates a different kind of kinetic energy in the brand, and it illustrates exactly what I'm saying. It's actually so hard to replicate that, that like people ought to learn from. I mean, I love reading those guys' stuff, learning from, because they ought to learn from them, but that it's actually not always the replicable pathway for others, So anyway, I'm sorry, keep going.
I agree. And what I'm saying is, like, these people are brilliant. They're exceptional. They're the top 0.1, 0.2% of our industry, right? They have brands with an extreme amount of PMF. They have offers that are, great, right? They have, economics in their business that, the numbers just work out, right? And that works out. a lot of times in hyper competitive categories, like beauty, like hair care, these are a little bit more difficult places to compete. And when you're operating on a bootstrap budget, right, you need to get scrappy. Your growth is going to look a little bit more linear. It's not going to look like a hockey stick. You know what I'm saying? Right away. And that's okay. Like, I said this, to Taylor when he was speaking at the event, just this past week, that, I really respect his approach to stable, sustainable growth, right? Like, he's not like the mega scale guy, and neither am I, right? And maybe that's a mindset thing, right? Do I think it's possible for those things to happen? Sure, right? Like, we went parabolic in a very short period of time, but I knew that wasn't going to be sustainable, and we should have parlayed that into the next thing, right? I use that as a moment to build on, right? And I think that the thing though is that people are still trying to just pour money into meta ads to just buy, revenue and profit. And do I think it's possible? Absolutely. Right? Is it possible? For sure. Is it easier to make Meta, an even more amazing ad platform and an advertising channel for you if you can be successful off of Meta? Yes. Right. I also think that it just makes it easier, So, overall, I think that the kind of the important thing that I've been thinking about is like, don't treat TikTok Shop as only a sales channel, right? If you just look at it from a dollar and cents perspective, and you don't treat it as a cultural engine, right, that could power, a lot of different industries, food and beverage, beauty, those are really, common, health, supplements, right? Like, our goal wasn't to make TikTok profitable. It was to make us inevitably known, right? That was our goal for it, right? It's like, if Meta ads can buy you revenue, then TikTok Shop can buy you cultural relevance type of, mindset. And once you have that cultural relevance and then you're serving ads to people on Meta, you get 40 million views on TikTok, you bump into someone on Meta, it's much more likely they're going to click on your ad. It's much more likely they're going to, convert. And so that's what made us profitable, much more profitable there. It's what, kind of put us in kind of easy mode over there. You know what I'm saying? And not easy, but it's easier.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. RICHPANEL is becoming the e-commerce help desk software of record in the e-commerce space. That's because they combine quality with price in an unparalleled way. RICHPANEL was built from the ground up with AI. They're an AI-first platform. If there's any area, as I've said before, in your business where AI can make an immediate and obvious impact, it is in helping your customer service team provide a better experience faster to your customers, not only with AI-assisted, tickets and all that sort of thing, the sort of basics of customer service, but also by providing an incredible self-help portal to your customers who are actually on your website, so they can find the answers to their questions in real time while they're shopping, and because of that, reduce your ticket load. On average, people who switch from Gorgeous and Zendesk to RICHPANEL see a 30% reduction in ticket load. And what that, of course, indicates is more customers, again, finding answers to their questions faster, which is really what you want at the end of the day, getting a great experience. Customers also rate their interactions with customer teams using RICHPANEL at very, very high numbers. So the AI is working great to provide high quality answers. It's not slop. And on top of all of that, the most obvious thing here is that RICHPANEL is guarantees that if you're switching from Gorgeous or Zendesk, they will save you at least 30% on your bill. They work with all kinds of size brands, including multiple brands that I work with at AJF Growth. We're very pleased with the service. All the way up through like the Ridge wallets of the world and Pillowcase and Lomi, like really large brands who are doing huge volumes of tickets. So they're not just an entry-level product. They really can service your needs wherever your business is at. Go to richpanel.com, tell them that I sent you. Go to richpanel.com and check it out today. How has Target gone since?
Very well. We're top performing hair care brand at Target from like a dollars per store per week basis. Our hair mask, which technically falls into the hair treatment category because it's like basically a weekly treatment, is one of the top performing treatments at Target. We're gearing up to go nationwide or nearly nationwide with them. It's kind of going to be up to us as to how many stores we want.
How aggressive. Yeah. How many doors do you have now?
We have 400 doors now. We're going
great.
to 800 in January. And then basically,
it's like 2,000 total, right?
Yeah, it's like 1994 or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
But for premium hair care, you might not want to, and they grade their stores like A grade, B grade. So you might not want to be in some of the lower quality stores just because your stuff's not going to sell there. So we'll make that decision, here soon. But we've also parlayed it into success, in Canada, right? Now we're selling in 600 stores in Canada. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to say which stores yet. We also have other, retail interest from, the likes of Costco and Target and CVS, right? Like once you get your foot in the door with a mass retailer and you're a top performer there, right? Like it parlays success into other places. And so, that's really what we did. I mean, would it be helpful? I know we skimmed over the top of it, but would it be helpful to dive into the trenches of like what the growth engine was, like what because it was a pretty unique approach, I thought. Something that I had never really like heard anyone put together cohesively before. And so that's why I wrote that original post. Forum post. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to. This was essentially sort of where I was going next anyway. So let's give people some more like handles to put on what they can do.
Perfect. So the idea here is that like TikTok Shop is like an ecosystem, right? Like if you zoom out and you look at, what TikTok Shop is, they have a really interesting algorithm and delivery engine. I'm sure all of us who have spent any time on TikTok knows that like once you engage with some sort of TikTok Shop video or product listing, you get like hit with this coordinated flurry. And it seems like everyone on TikTok is talking about you. You just end up with so much stuff in your feed. And that's actually the same way for like niches in TikTok, right? You might get into clean talk and all of a sudden you're in cleaning videos, or I was on like North Sea talk. You know what I mean? Like there's all of these random niches, and like you engage with something a little bit and you get hit with this coordinated flurry of things where it feels like all of TikTok is talking about it. Videos have lots of likes, comments, and shares. And so the interesting thing that I knew is like, number one, we needed content supply. And so where we got content supply was our goal was to send 120 samples a week through the TikTok Shop Affiliate Center, right? And so we just selected, qualified affiliates who had at least, I think our benchmark was $500 or $1,000 in total GMV produced, meaning like they it was low, but we were just like, F it, like let's just try and get supply on there, right? Because we knew that the supply would then power GMV max, which is another kind of part of the cylinder. So like cylinder one was content supply, right? We did this with micro creators. We did it, through the affiliate, TikTok Shop Affiliate Center. Cylinder two of the growth engine was kind of what we were considering to be credibility, right? It's like we then basically dropped a good amount of money, right? Roughly 200, maybe 250,000 on influencers, right? On 10 to 15 influencers. And these influencers, basically, they were known in the beauty space. Some of them, had
200,000 for between 10 and 15 influencers means you were taking a big swing.
Yeah, big swing. And also giving them like huge commissions on the TikTok Shop post. Some of them like were $50,000 posts for influencers, and we negotiated down and said, hey, we'll give you this and a 50% commission. And so, yeah, we took a really big swing. Like we committed to like, okay, once we were getting the affiliates up and running, and we did that for a few weeks, that's when we started, okay, this is when we're going to start layering the influencers. We actually had all the influencers post in about a 2-week period. So we had like, again, I can't remember the exact amount of influencers, but I'll say it's about 15, more than 10, maybe less than 15, influencers post in about a 2-week period. So there was just this big burst, right? And then what we were doing was we actually had a lot of our micro creators talk about, I'm sure you saw Kate Davis, post about this pink hair mask, right? I tried it, blah, 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 blah. So then we were briefing our micro creators who we were gifting product to to talk about some of the more popular creators, now all of a sudden it seemed like everyone on TikTok was talking about this pink hair mask, right? And so that combined with the paid amplification through GMV Max, right? Which if you don't know, if you're watching, you don't know what GMV Max is, basically put all your TikTok shop tagged posts in there, you set a target ROAS and you set a daily budget. It's basically like a mega cost cap, campaign. We set the thing to be break even ROAS, which for us estimated was about a 1.6. And we, put, $15,000 or $20,000 a day in budget. It almost never spent that entire daily budget, but, maybe 1 or 2 days, right? It spent that full budget.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, between the GMV Max, the macro influencers, the micro creators, we had built this massive awareness engine where we were getting, our top videos were getting 5 to 10 million views on those larger creators. Why? Because they were powered by GMV Max, right? And then the kind of the fourth cylinder.
So
right,
essentially a mix of organic and paid at that point, right? In order to generate the view count.
Yeah, a mix of organic, paid, and influencer, all kind of creating this ecosystem where it felt like everyone was talking about us for a period of time. Then that's kind of when we kind of, things started happening. Much larger influencers and creators on TikTok were noticing how fast our growth was. And in order to kind of get in and make commission, they were posting about us without us ever gifting them a product. Like some of them were buying our product, actually, believe it or not, and then posting about it, tagging us on TikTok Shop because it was relevant. It felt like everyone was talking about us. So we got a lot of earned media towards the tail end of that influencer stuff as well. And during all of this, kind of conversion level number 4 was making sure we always had weekly promotions scheduled. So we were doing flash sales and BOGOs and, all of these things to make sure that we always had something that could like create urgency to get the purchase over and over and over again. And during some of those big periods, we're actually pushing SMS traffic to our TikTok shop listing. Why SMS only? Because I figured you're already on your phone. If I can click it and get it to launch the TikTok app right into our TikTok shop, maybe people will buy it and it will kind of help accelerate our success. And so, the resulting flywheel was basically like, the market started working for us, right? Like influencers we never paid jumped in just to earn affiliate commissions. The product was trending and we like manufactured this cultural relevance, right? Which when it was driving interest for our product overall, right? It was, dude, we were having our biggest days on Amazon during this period. So there was 330K on TikTok shop, right?
Yeah, but that's of course, that's not the whole story.
But the net of it, the whole story was like, we're doing our biggest days ever on D2C. We were doing our biggest days ever on Amazon. And the overall marketing efficiency of everything was basically a 4, right? And so that was great.
So go ahead, sorry.
And it eventually started, right? It was a 4 and then it started tapering down, right? Things started fatiguing. It was almost like we needed to throw more coal into the fire. Do we invest in more influencers? Do we get this thing going again? Like, is it worthwhile? And we were at a crossroads, right? Where it's like, what do we do here? And ultimately my decision, which, actively, actually, I will say there's not very many things I regret. I will say that one of my regrets was realizing that I actually thought I was too late to the game in March of 24. Like I thought like the kind of the gold rush era had ended and I was in the middle of it. And I kind of decided to scale things down a little bit because it wasn't very profitable. And I thought that it was enough boost of success that we were just going to be successful with, TikTok ads for website checkout, Meta ads, Google ads. We were just going to kind of be able to kind of slowly and consistently maintain, which we have, maintained and grown. And ultimately, towards the end of the year, we got the outreach from Target. And so it was like, okay, I think we achieved what we needed to achieve. And so we've continuously maintained TikTok Shop. We still do affiliate sampling. We still run GMV Max. We still run ads, right? We still do, influencer stuff on a quarterly basis, but it's not the, $250,000 big swing on influencer. It's not, setting GMV Max to a 1.6, and letting it kind of spend wild, it's a little bit more of a controlled, engine for us. But it's okay though, because we already achieved our relevancy, right? And we are, and so we're getting the best affiliates we've ever gotten to post for us for free, are posting for us now. Why? Because, we have, a lot of sales, or a silver star seller, like all of these things, like it just happens a little bit easier now. But that's kind of the story. Is there
super helpful? And no, it actually reminds me a lot of what I've heard Jordan West talk about. I've had Jordan on the podcast a couple of times, and he's transitioned his agency to from focusing on meta to focusing on social commerce, and is a big TikTok shop guy. And I kept trying to find a way to get him to say, here's how to make TikTok shop profitable without paying for ads in the early days, and without taking a huge swing and spending a bunch of money. And he just kept being like, no, like you can't. And he tells the story. I don't know if you know Jordan at all, or follow his content at all, but okay. So if people who are listening to this, just search Jordan West on my channel, you'll find a couple of episodes with me with him, because the thing that's really interesting about it is that what he describes as the thing that works on TikTok Shop is basically exactly what you just said, which is like full-fledged approach across everything, seed like crazy, pay for ads, get bigger influencers in the midst of it as well, give really aggressive commissions. All of those things work together, and get ready to drop a whole bunch of money on this. If you're not ready to do that, then you're not going to get there. And the effect multi-channel impact on your business, omni-channel, measure it across everything you're doing, measure the total TikTok spend across, exactly like you said. I'm not looking at this as like TikTok shop revenue versus TikTok spend. It's like, okay, how does this affect my entire business? And that's, more traditional kind of marketing framework, but it's very similar to what you said. And that's the thing that's fascinating about it, right? If you developed that independently of Jordan, but you're both saying the same thing, it lends credibility to the idea, right? Because you're both coming to the same independent conclusion. So I really like it. I mean, it actually reminds me in other ways of some things. I've told the story a lot of times, and so people are going to be sick of it if they've listened to me for a little while, but in the early days of Kalo, when I was there, Silicone Wedding Ring Company, right? We just made a decision to push into CrossFit, and as like a core audience when sort of CrossFit was in its heyday. And what we did was we entered CrossFit from every angle. So it was like influencer, sponsoring the games, supporting charities, sponsoring podcasts, etc., because we just wanted to be everywhere the CrossFitters were. And it worked great. It was like really, really awesome. And it was like probably the best version of this that I'd seen from a brand, where you just do all of these things all at once. And what you're describing sounds like that was like 2014, 2015. What you're describing sounds like a 2024, 2025 version of that same strategy with a much larger market, right? Which is like all female beauty and hair care, which is gigantic compared to CrossFit. So
it's like it manufactured works. If you can be where people are, it works. Yeah,
right? Exactly.
You can manufacture relevancy. You can kind of manufacture virality in a way by paying for it, right? But doing all the right things.
Another way of saying that is sort of having some respect for your customer in a way that you understand where they are and how they engage with things and who influences them. And so you just show up where they are and participate for real. That, that sounds maybe less mercenary than manufactured relevancy, but I think it's a very similar idea, which is like you show up and again, when I hear you talk about your product, you talk about it with like this sense of like, this is really good. So you go and you really try to serve the customer by showing up where they are.
I will say a couple things that I learned from this, that for people that are listening, if you are not confident that you can successfully capitalize, if you don't have an amazing product and you're not going to be able to properly capitalize on all this new attention and, all of this relevancy and all of this media and everything, and because TikTok Shop itself is very likely not going to be profitable, right? I've talked to a lot of really large TikTok shop sellers, and they all say the same thing that I'm saying to you, which is like the channel is not a profit generator, right? And so if you don't have an amazing product,
Colin, measured narrowly, you mean, right? Like
TikTok, measured narrowly, yes, yeah. Like just talking about TikTok shop related advertising and marketing investment to the TikTok shop revenue, but overall it can and should have a larger impact, right? Now, What I'm saying though is that you have to be investing in these other channels, right? You have to be running Amazon. You have to be running Amazon PPC. You have to be doing Google. You have to be running Google brand in order to capture your brand terms. Otherwise, your competitors are just going to siphon your brand traffic right up the top. You have to be running Meta. But the other thing that I will say is that this is just like what did you say his name was? Jordan West. Okay,
Jordan West. Yeah.
I've actually taught this to a few other people who did it 80%. Right? They're like, oh, we did the samples. We sampled 150 a week, right? We set up GMV max, right? That seemed to be the heaviest lift. But when you take out the manufactured, a bunch of influencers in a 2-week period, all of a sudden just hammer TikTok, and a couple of the videos, I think three of the videos got 2 million views or more. Okay. Now, again, it was also being boosted by GMV Max, by paid, but they were also organically doing very well from well-known creators on TikTok, right? From influencers on TikTok. When you remove that from it, right, that wouldn't have been successful for us, right? So if you remove just the influencer, or I've seen people say like, oh yeah, no, we're doing like, 20 to 30, 20 samples a month, maybe, close to 100, or sorry, 20 a week, maybe close to 100 a month, right? And then, oh yeah, we hired some influencers, and yes, we have GMV Max set up. It's like, there's a tipping point, right? There's a tipping point, and this is an ecosystem where things are building on each other. And if you don't do all of them, to your friend Jordan West point, I experience the same thing. I tell people like, listen, if you want to do this, you better be ready to pony up like 250, in our case, about $350,000 investment, and basically expect to break even on the whole entire thing. You know what I mean? Direct 1-to-1 on TikTok, but it will create a better return for you on Amazon and D2C and in other channels for you. But you can't do it just a little bit. There's no like, oh, I'm going to do 80% of the effort for 80% of the results. I think it's like you do 80% of what, me and this guy Jordan West are explaining, and you're going to get 20% of the return.
That's right. Yeah. And that's where there just is risk involved with these kinds of things. And people, I think the reason people don't do it relative to something like Meta, where you feel like you can kind of control the risk a little bit. When I'm going to work on building my own brand in the next year, like I'll probably have a less risk-oriented approach than what you're describing. It's because my goals are not that ambitious and some of those things. But I think if it's people got to decide here what they're trying to build and what they're willing to put into it, and where their customer is and what it takes to reach them, and all the things that you said, So, Colin, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking the time to do it. I appreciate it. You can follow Colin on X. The link for that is in the show notes, but you can do that at Colin V. McGuire, McGuire. And then Colin, you also came from Boomin, which is the agency that you co-founded, and so people can check that out as well. BOOMN, if you need help with your digital ads, digital marketing programs, and anything else. Did I leave anything out, Colin? Do we need to hit anything else?
No, man, I hope it was helpful. Appreciate, the opportunity to talk about it, and maybe it'll add some value to to our community, to our industry. So that's what I was here for.
I'm certain that it will. Thanks again for taking your time.
All right, man. See ya.
What are your biggest questions and thoughts about this episode? Leave them in the comments on this episode, especially if you're watching on YouTube. I would love to interact with you there. And don't forget to subscribe if you liked it. I've got Jordan Menard coming up soon, like I talked about in the conversation with Colin. And you're not going to want to miss that episode. It's going to be really good. Maybe he'll yell at me. It'll be fun. You can also email me, podcast@ajfgrowth.com, or if you'd like to work with AJF Growth, you can go to my website, ajfgrowth.com, and fill out the intake form there. I'd love to interact with you. And don't forget to follow up with my wonderful sponsors for this episode, More Staffing and RICHPANEL. They are both great. You should go check them out right now. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time.